Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Indecent Proposal. The $1,000,000 question would, of course, go on and be, what is this movie about? Really, the bare bones basic aspect of the movie would really just come not so quite easily with this film and how it is to be a slow build of a movie. But the real basic aspect of the film, bare bones, is that John Gage is to come across both David and Diane and is to offer them $1,000,000 for one night with David's wife. To state that there is to go on and be no restrictions, there is to go on and be no wedding vows or no nothing that is to go on and stop John from doing whatever he is to want with this woman for one night. And that John is to go on and promise David $1,000,000. It'll be in his account by the following day. And for this guy not to worry about that money because this guy is worth billions or a billion. So at one point, we have to realize that $1,000,000 can change your life, can save your life, could go on and make you contemplate what you can do with that kind of money and be like, oh man, I can buy clothes that actually fit me. I can go on to just be able to finish my collection, or I can go on and buy all the things that I've ever wanted in my life. I can buy a house. I can buy a car. I can buy this. I can buy that. That is to probably go on and just like have you create a list of everything you've ever wished for, and you can get them within seconds of putting that thing together. But here is the thing. When you are to go on and think that this money is to change or save your life, but maybe also it is to ruin it. Just the greed of it all could go on and just push you over the edge, could have you lose everything else beyond that $1,000,000 that you don't even want to go on and even grasp at anymore. Just like, well, like I had this dream before I was to even get this money, and now that dream is gone. Because the dream was to have a wife. The dream was to have this white picket fence life of this home and this land, and then further just realizing that, well, like that whole entire dream went up in smoke. So how am I going to get my life back together even though I still have $1,000,000? What do I need to get my life back together for? But we have to realize that happiness can trump riches within this film at some point. And a lot of people can go on and debate and could be like, well, hey, but $1,000,000 is $1,000,000 and what have you. But like, you also have movies like The Box where the couple is to get this opposition where it's like, well, hey, like if you go on and if you hit this button right now, like we'll give you like tons of money and what have you. But if you hit this button, a random person that you may or may not know dies. And that is to go on and also just be like a very interesting film of how that all plays out, where we go on and start to realize that, like, well, hey, if one person is getting this question, then maybe other people have gotten it too. Maybe there has been so many people who are to go on and debate this. It's like, well, hey, like it couldn't probably be ending up being someone we know. Maybe it's an old guy. Maybe it's uh, a person well past their prime. Maybe it's a to be a person that's lonely or yeah. So, but you can go on and find movies like this just so interesting to kind of be set in this position, uh, unless logically uh, you were to go on and not have a wife or whatever, but like you can still speculate if you wanted to go on and be like, okay, like if I had this kind of money, like what would I do? And then also, like the Richard Pryor movie, where he goes on and he has to spend just a huge chunk of money. And John Candy is also in that movie, and I coincidentally reviewed Uncle Buck recently. But there was also that Richard Pryor movie where he has to go on and just spend a ton of money to then go on and be able to get a ton of money to retire off of. So like the whole goal of that Richard Pryor movie, I don't remember exactly what the title is, but I know I was gonna go on and review it at some point. I think it was like Brewster's Millionaires or something like that, or Millionaire or something. Let me know in the comments below what exactly the title is, and we'll answer that question that way. But I'm to go on and to have remembered that film and realize that this guy really needs to go on and spend all this money, and people are going to be like, well, hey man, like you're spending all this money, like you're wasting all of it. And the guy's like, no, 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 I definitely need to spend this money. Let's go on and figure out ways to just blow it all, because they don't really understand why. And it's just an interesting story with that to just see how this guy just blows all this money. He becomes like a political figure, and he goes on to like find all these people and just like, hey, money. So uh, within this film, or within these films, they're a lot of fun. Even stuff like Love Don't Cost a Thing or Can't Buy Me Love is to have a character that is like, well, hey, I have a bunch of money and this girl's really attractive. So, like, I'll go on and I'll see if I can go on and hope that if I can give her money, that she can make me popular because she is to be like the highest of cheerleader or whatever. Uh, and that's how the movie just kind of plays out to eventually have people find out that this guy paid for his popularity, and then everybody is kind of ragging on him and saying it's like, well, hey, like I'll be your girlfriend if you give me money. And the jokes would be made by this guy to where I believe at some point reasonably still, like this guy goes on and is to end up to be with this girl, like regardless of how much he is to have even paid her before, or ends up with this girl because it's just like she was actually interested in him before uh money was really just a thing that she was getting paid for. The more and more that they hung out together, that it was just like they were made to be. But anyways, so this movie I feel is such a slow slog of a film that there could be quite a bit of time where there's a lot of editing that could have been done with this movie. But then there's also just some kind of really interesting one-liners where, of course, we have Demi Moore that goes on and talks about uh, this one line in an interview that she got on and did with, I think, Vanity Fair or something, where she has to remember her lines. And the line that she states here, that is remembered here, ends up getting talked about in that interview, where she mentions that the line is, well, the dress is for sale and I'm not. And Demi ends up figuring out it's like, oh yeah, this is from Indecent Proposal. And ding, yeah. So So we go into this film, and by the end of it, we're seeing how John Gage is to further like go on to just be like, well, hey, I'll give you this $1 million, couple, but I'm gonna tear you apart and try and get what I want out of this. And that's what makes for a really good second half film. If we're just really just waiting, like, come on, like, when is he gonna ask the question? When is Robert Redford gonna slap his wallet down and be like, hey, $1 million for a woman for one night? When is that gonna happen? It's the build of that. It's the just like, come on already, like, get to that point. Why are you going on and showcasing these people winning all this money and then losing it, and then having us realize that greed is corrupting them so much so that it just will never end. And we have to realize that, like, this relationship was probably ruined well before that $1 million question had even happened. That these people, like it, like, if I really think about it, like, yeah, this relationship was ruined well before that Robert Redford question comes into play. Because honestly, for how they were just so desperate to think that they can go to the casino and win $50,000 just is like, wow, like, there is no possible way that that can just so easily be a thing, especially when they start out with like the slots and they're getting like X number of dollars, and then they go on to the dice table craps, and they just see a person on the hot streak and they're just running with it, and then they start to go to the roulette wheel, and like, yeah, so they go from like from what is to, I assume, be basically nothing to $25,000, and then further it's just like, man, just be done now, walk away now. You're halfway there. You can start to go on and at least like make some payments, right? You can go on and be like, okay, we have a pretty good nest egg to uh walk away from. Yeah, it's not the ultimate goal of 50, but like, reasonably, like, I can't go on and see that it was like an all or nothing thing, that they needed this 50,000, or uh or nothing was going to be able to come of this. It was just seemingly getting consumed by it all, because all they needed to do was to make payments on this thing. And like, I think $25,000 would have been good enough for a good long stretch of time. And then maybe if the money started to run out, then maybe they could have ran to a casino again and just kind of done this all over again. Uh, but anyways, this movie is available on Pluto. If I haven't said already, Pluto TV. I've used that app at some sparingly points to just kind of catch some films that are to kind of be nowhere else. But then also, you can check out an app called Moopzy, Moopzzi. Or also, I'm not quite sure if exactly this movie was available on this other app, but I'm going to recommend it anyways. So you can go on and see just a ton of shit for free. An app called Zelifonic, Zelivonic, and you can watch a ton of movies through both these apps, even Pluto TV for absolutely free, and really just go on and just watch whatever you like. Pluto TV, you can probably not watch everything, but the other two apps that I've gone on and suggested here, there seems to be just like a lot of stuff you can go on and see. But eventually it'll get to the point where you've seen like a billion things, and then at some point when you're just kind of looking through to find this one random movie or show, just narrow down how really just challenging or difficult to hopefully not be able to find something is, then then that will be like the real measuring stick of how good these apps really are. But with that said, how did I feel about this movie? The problem with it is like it's almost a 2 hour film. It's a very slow build, but I think also this movie has a good second half. And also, like, I do like the way that this movie builds. Even though, again, I'm like, you really could have condensed this movie down a lot. But, like, reasonably, I'm sure there's just, like, a better cut of this film that they don't have to go into all of this stuff. Like, if they probably would have gone on and done this movie today, it probably would have been a lot shorter. Uh, but reasonably, like, I would say that this is a. I want to say that it's a solid, good if not great film. Just because again, like you're really needing to like invest in this movie to get to the point where you're like, all right, let's get to the proposition. Let's see, like when this is gonna happen. Come on, like all I care about is that I don't care about the rest of this film. I don't care that these people had this dream home and this dream patch of land, and it all was taken from them just because recession happened, and I don't care about any of that. I just want to go on and I just want to know the question: what is it? Like that's all I care about, movie. Why do you have to go on and tease me, film? But again, there's a whole reason for that. So I really did go on and enjoy this movie. I really did. Like and like especially that second half where John is to come in and be like, well, like you thought I was just gonna disappear in the night. No, like I'm gonna come after Diana and like I'm gonna throw my wallet at her and she's gonna be like, all right, well, I'm gonna flex her to death and she's gonna be like, oh my god, wow, this guy really truly is a billionaire. Oh wow. And like it is kind of sad how like John is to be this billionaire and think he is to have everything that he is to ever want, but still what eludes him is just that perfect woman. And how he is to go on and like really just need to pay to get to get a woman really at this stage of his life. It's kind of sad uh because anybody can go on and know who he is and could go on to realize how much money he has. Like, we have Bob Thornton's character that is kind of turning to both Diana and Dave here, like, yeah, this guy's a billionaire. Like, so it seems like this guy is to be like the Bruce Wayne of this world that everybody knows his name and knows how much money he has, but like he's struggling to find the love of his life and he has to go on and position this woman to uh to say that like well hey like I almost escaped true love once, I'm not doing it again. And so John lays it on thick, and I mean thick, to to try and win this movie or win this movie in a lot of ways by the end of this. But again, there is to always be like well like I can go on and live a happy life with this guy who's filthy, stinking rich. But is he my soulmate? Is he a guy that I'm going on and seeing beyond his wallet and beyond his uh, just way that I can just kind of like not need to ever go on and need to hold down two jobs or need to go on um and need to do this and that in my life. Like I don't need to ever go on and need to find another lover again. I could just find this guy and just be happy. But anyways, let's go on and let's break this movie down in the way of which that it is to go on and build to, and then let's call this one a day. So let me know in the comments below if you were put in this position. uh, if you were to give up your wife, or if you were to give up yourself for $1 million, but you really don't exactly know what that means. You really don't know. Like the whole thing of it all is, it's just like, what if this guy would have gone on to like, well, yeah, I'll proposition you $1 million, and then you realize that this guy has some STD or something. You don't know. Maybe he is to be this billionaire that is like, yeah, I'm dying. Yeah, you don't know. But anyways, so I'm just kind of making it lighthearted or just joking around here. So let's go on. Let's pause this video here and let's whip out everything that we need to whip out here and go and break this movie down. Without a doubt, let me know in the comments below how you felt about this movie whatsoever, or just prattle on and just say whatever random crap that you want to go on and just say in the comment section. Maybe just throw some letters and words down there uh, before you leave, so that way you can go on and just, all right, cool, like I at least have a comment on the comment section. Wouldn't that be great? But then again, also, I will actually probably respond to it, so I'll have two comments instead of just one, unless it's gibberish, and then I'm like, well, like, there's nothing I can say there, but at least there's a comment there. So, with that said, let's go on. Let's pause this here. Let's get my stuff, my cast list, whatever, and is to insist to help me figure out how this movie was to have played out via the time that I'd watched it the night before and then decided to review it this morning. So let's pause here. Let's do this. All right, spoilers, everybody. Spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about that time. I'm gonna spoil this movie. This movie, if I haven't said already, it was great. But it was just like just so building, just like, come on already, come on, come on. So, but let's get into this. So, Diane is on a bus somewhere wearing this lavish dress, and David is at a pier somewhere, just going on and just being full in thought, making the two of them look at their lives together and start all over again to tell us this story. So, David is a state that losing Diane was like losing a part of me. And Diane is to go on and say, it's like, well, like, isn't there the old saying, like, well, if you really love something, that let it go and see if it comes back to you and like, and love it forever, or if it leaves and doesn't come back, then like maybe we're never supposed to get it all along and this and that. So the two of these people are to go on and have a good bit of reflection that is to lead them to remember the very first time that they are to go on and logically to have really met, which is David is going on and is to be driving these two women home, and Diane is to be in the back seat. David is in the rearview mirror going on and kind of giving Diane like these googly eyes as this other girl is going on and belting out this song. So and we come to find out that Diana has braces at the time, and she like laughs and is like, like all right. So eventually, we fast forward to both David and Diane at this pier that David is to be by the end of the film, but here is where the two of them are in this flashback. And we find out that this location has significance because this is where David had proposed to Diane and asked him to marry her or marry him. And she said yes, and the two of them seemed to be the happiest that they could ever go on and be. But it seemed that their parents were to go on to be like, yeah, like I don't think that this is gonna work. Like I don't think the two of you are gonna work out as a couple. And the two of them were like, oh well, like we don't care, we love one another, and so we're gonna run off and get married. And so they eloped. Like that's how much they knew they were like soulmates. That's how much they knew that they were gonna end up together. But maybe they should have also gone on and listened to their parents. To just be like, well, hey, maybe this isn't going to work out. Like, well, hey, like he's just, uh, like he's really just not going to be the one for you, or hey, she's not going to be the one for him. But uh, for whatever reason, they try as hard as they can to just make this work, and so they elope and run off and get married. So David is to go on and draw these buildings because he's an architecture. And Diane is to be this realtor, I guess. Perfect reason for the two of them to go on and be together. And so David is going on and drawing this building, and Diane is to kind of just fall into his arms. And there is some really just cool lines that are kind of delivered in this movie. And this one is to go on and, of course, be the simple one that they eventually just keep saying at some point in the movie. And Diane turns to David and says, like, well, have I ever told you I loved you? And David says no. And we, of course, go on to say, it's like, well, I love you. It's like, you do? Still? And then always. And we see that like it's not perfectly phrased in my mind to be exactly what they say verbatim, but like that seems to be the thing that they keep coming back to in this movie of like, have I told you I love you? Still, always, and that's the way eventually that all these lines just kind of put together of just so. But then we start to realize that the longer and longer that the two of them have been together, that there is actually there is pet peeves and problems that arrive that of course David is to just drive Diane crazy at some points. David is to go on and take his clothes and fling them all over the place, and he even goes on to put shoes on the table, which I'm just like, why would you put your shoes on the table? Like those shoes were on the ground. And as Diane is to start to grab these pieces of clothing and chuck them into uh, this uh, basket, she then notices like these dirty shoes that are on the table. And as David is to go on and be uh, having this bit of toast with these bananas and this syrup, or he's kind of just splooshing it just kind of all over. And we have Diane that is to be driven crazy by the fact that David is to just kind of be this slob, and to the point of her like grabbing this knife and chasing after David all around the house, and Diane is chucking something at David's head, and David is like, okay, all right, hey, relax, like, and he's like, man, I guess I really do drive you crazy at some points, but then this is the lead the two of them to be in this passionate moment where they are to just be like intimately being on the ground, all while David's pants are to go on and be on top of this oven, and they are all of a sudden burning. And so Diane turns to David and is like, well, yeah, your pants are on fire. And David turns to Diane and it's like, you have no idea. So we then transition to this car wash. It's like, okay, what's important about this car wash? And David is to be so fascinated by buildings and loves the way that they are put together or built or what have you. And so David is to show this place to Diana to just see how built wise how beautiful it is. But then Diana is like, well, why are we at a car wash looking at this? And it forces Diane to see more and really open her eyes uh, to the beauty of everything instead of just realizing that this is just a car wash. So here is where Diane turns to David and it's like, well, hey, like I have this batch of land here. It seems to be just prime land that, if anything, they're going on and thinking about like, well, hey, how about we buy up this land and we can either go on and like put this land and have David just kind of build anything that he wants there because he's this architect. But what Diane really wants David to do is finally go on and build their dream home. The one that David has just been like, yeah, this would be the perfect house for us to have. So the two of them go on to start building on this dream home, and so much time is to end up being taken into this dream home that eventually, when Diane is to have this retail or real estate job, and David is to have this architect job, it seems that slowly but surely things are to arise that are to be problems. That eventually the housing market is to dry up, and David is to realize that uh, construction workers to be let go, and David is to possibly even go on and almost lose his job. And then we go on to have both David and Diane needing to go on and seek out this lawyer who is Jeremy. I probably should go on and check out the cast list here because I really didn't. I really didn't before I started this whole thing because really there's not much besides John, Diana, and David to really remember here. There's Shackelford, but like he's not in this movie enough. But so and Bob Thornton's character is just being called Day Tripper, whatever that means. And then also there's a brief person that comes into play here called Mr. Langford. Again, we barely see him in this movie. If anything, like Jeremy does go on and play a seemingly significant role that consistently ends up being put in this film, but really he also is just like, well, like he's a person who just kind of randomly pops up in this movie at certain points. So Jeremy is to turn uh, to both Diane and David here and say, yeah, well, like, you know what? Like, we really do need money for this land. Like, you guys have just kind of held it up for long enough. And if you guys do not go on and don't like start paying on uh on this batch of land and this house that you've just kind of just laid waste there, then we're going to start taking things. We're going to start taking assets that you are to go on and have. And so David and Diane are like, well, like, what do you mean by assets? And Jeremy turns to him and it's like, well, like, it means we're going to take your home. So both David and Diane are to just be so lost at this point of like, how could this have happened? And Diana turns to David and it's like, I'm so scared. And what are we going to do? And David is like, I don't know, like we'll just wait tables or we'll drive a cab, uh like we'll just do something, I don't know, to just try and make this money. But then again, like if they go on and do common jobs, like there's probably no way they're going to go on and make this money back so easily. So but the more and more they're to be in so desperation or dire straits, the more David looks at Diane and is like, I'll take care of you. And the two of them hug because they still love one another. So David goes on to try and figure out how he's to get out of this. And David is to be looking at this dream house and this land that is to go on and just kind of be just sitting there unbuilt. David is to turn to his father and ask for $5,000. And that would definitely not go on and be enough because actually both Diane and David needed $50,000. So $5,000 would just be a drop in the bucket. So Diane and David are just in their beds, just kind of like, oh man, like how are we going to go on and how are we going to get out of this rut? So David decides that he has a plan, he has an idea, and that lends them to go to the casino. And as this band is to play and a number of slots are to go on and be kind of sat in and hopefully won a ton of money off of, David and Diane go to this one slot and they're like, all right, like we're making some money here, but it's just not good enough. Like, uh, but hey, they're just thinking like 50,000, here we come. So this goes on to see at this crap table that this woman seems to be at this hot streak. So David decides, like, all right, like, well, I'm gonna go on and I'm gonna see that this woman is doing really well at craps. So I'm just gonna let it ride and stick with her. As Diane is to go off into this lavish just clothing store where she is to pine away about her future, hoping that this $50,000 will go on and just go away, and she'll be able to get all the finest dresses and the uh, free sample of chocolate that all she used to want because she used to steal all of them and shove them in her hand, and all we have John Gage in the distance going on and looking at Diane do so. It's like, all right, hey, yeah, uh, like you're really fun. So Gage is not going to go on and call her out on it. Like, hey, police, she's stealing free samples. No, uh, but both Gage and Diane, like, Gage is like, yeah, I know you did that, and Diane is like, yeah, I did. And the two of them just kind of have this laugh, this chuckle, and so Diane goes in the store, and weirdly enough, like even forgot to say this. Like this movie is to also feel very much like a Pretty Woman in my mind. If you really think about it, you have like the Julia Roberts, Richard Gere story, where the rich guy ends up finding the lady of the night woman, and he goes on and has a night with her, but then realizes, well, like it's really not enough. Like if this girl is to just go on and not be with anybody or whatever, then maybe I should go on and just try to just figure out a way to romance her and win her over, and buy her all the lavish things that she used to go on and want. It's really just kind of like Pretty Woman in a lot of ways, with the whole like proposition just not to be in here. Also, like this movie is to kind of in a way also feel like 50 Shades of Grey, but uh, reasonably Gray is to go on and obtain this girl for a longer stretch of time uh, than just one night. And so recently we go on to like really find that there's probably a number of movies that can go on and really just kind of connect to this one, and more so than I thought. So that's kind of just really interesting. But back to the film. So Diane is going on and trying on as really as she's to not really think that she's to actually obtain this dress, but she is almost trying it on at a point where she is to like almost be dressing herself down right in the store almost to where Gage then magically appears and like, well, hey, it suits you. And Diane is to look at Gage like, well, yeah, it suits me, but like, it doesn't suit me for the price tag that is to be held upon it. And Gage is like, well, hey, how about I buy you? Like, if anything, you're really entertaining. And how about I go on and I get this for you, just because uh, like I just thought you were fun. And here's where Diane goes on and be like, well, hey, the dress is for sale and I'm not, and she turns away. So David is back at the crap table. It seems that he's on a hot streak with this woman, and Diane comes back, and it seems that they're up at this point about over $9,000. Gage is off in the distance, just kind of looking, and at his table, he's going on, and he's just like, like that woman. There's just something about that woman. I just can't put my finger on it, but there's just something there. I just want to be around her, and but she's with another man. What am I gonna do about that? How am I gonna put a wedge between these two people? So David lets Diana pull on the dice as they continue to let this hot streak roll. So further and further, as David and Diane celebrate, they kiss and whatever. And Gage is just kind of looking off the distance because I guess he just likes to watch. Goes on to realize that that both Diane and David are happy with only seemingly being able to obtain somewhere on the lines of $25,000 and or $25,040. So the two of them are at this bed together. They're throwing all this money around, and they're happy, they're content, and they again are to realize how close they are to possibly getting to this $50,000 goal, even though they only have 25. So Diane is to take David and they are to be intimate together within this bed. And then they go on and they go to the roulette wheel. Big mistake. They go to the roulette wheel and they're at some points just putting money on certain numbers, and they're going on to realize that they are to slowly but surely start to lose this money. And they go from 25,000 to then what they were to go on and be like, well, hey, like if we start losing money, we'll just stop at 5,000. But they didn't even stop then. They are to be down to $4,100. Like, oh my god. Like, when would you have gone on and said enough is enough? Well before that. But again, here's the thing, and I've been at the casino at some certain points also, so I can understand this. So when you're to go on and be up at a casino, like at one point I had gone on and been able to go to the casino, and I would come there with like, let's say like roughly $100 sometimes, because that's I think about roughly where I would have like most of the money. Because sometimes like I would just kind of be handed money and whatever by the relatives or whatever they I came with, so maybe it was more than 100, but still. Um, because eventually I'd probably just lose that money and eventually be like, hey, here's $5, here's $10, here's whatever. But still, so once you have that $100 and you start to spend it, you're to not exactly know like how much money you have on you until you really start to like how I would go on and do is I would get to a point where I would just be like, okay, let's stop here and let's just kind of count how much money I have left to go on and see how much I can justify in my mind how long I should go about this. And like if I'm down like $50, then I'm like, okay, well I still have $50 left. Then like I'll just stop here because I don't think I'm gonna go on it and do myself any better. Uh, so, but yeah, but that money goes quick. But you got to go on and just stop at a moment and just kind of count how much money you have to justify to think that you can just continue to go on. And then there are times you get really lucky on a slot, and there had been quite a bit of times where I'd gotten lucky where I'd gotten $100 out of one machine, and I'm like, yeah, all right. Like so, as soon as I go on and I got that $100 off of that one machine, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like I don't want to go on, and I don't want to go any further. Like $100 to me is like, man, I can go on and I can get a lot with that $100. And funny enough now, how like $100 is just kind of a like how much that can go on and just kind of not really do much to help people out these days. But it'll kind of just get you by for a week. But so, uh, of course, with the job, that probably ends up just paying like $100 just a week because of how scarcely it goes on and actually gives you employment. Like how I'd gone on and been through so many jobs where they would go on and just give you like 2 whole days to work out of the whole entire 7-day week, and then you're just like, wow, okay, like up until at some points they won't even give you that, and then you're like, wow, well, like what am I even here for? Um, so, but then again, when they have you, like, man, do they not want to let you go either? So they don't really want to give you hours, but then when you're there, they're like, hey, can you stay for another couple hours or whenever we just want you to leave? and then it's like yeah, I guess, but when am I going home? It's like, well, I don't know, we don't really know. And it's like, like, I guess I can use the money, but like, couldn't you have just gone on and just scheduled me an extra day? Couldn't you have like, and it just makes no sense because like they schedule you like the least amount, but then they want to go on and they want to just kind of dictate uh like when they have. So yeah, it just like it becomes like this just heartbreaking um just decision of like man, you guys do have money to give me hours, but you won't give me hours. So it's just like, well, okay, all right, well, like um so it's just the whole thing of it is like, well, like I must not just be a good enough worker, and like that's a slippery slope. And that goes on and really messes with your mind and really just chips away at your ego. Uh, but if anything, again, you should just be happy that you're getting that money. But again, when you're having just money in the bank just kind of sitting there also because you're not doing much with it, like, yeah, it's just like you start to realize your value. But anyways, back to this movie because of course a lot of people are like, yeah, 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 I don't want to hear any of this stuff because it's just sad and depressing and whatever. But anyways, moving on. So the further that these two go on and are to obviously just blow their money at this point because they weren't going to go on and be happy to try and win this money back. I think they were to go on and be even more happy when they were to blow it all away. It feels because you go on and have at some points like some people state that it's like, well, hey, like you don't come to the casino to win, like you come to the casino to lose. Like you want to go on and you want to just keep pressing your luck to where you lose everything, to where you lose your shirt off your back, and like that's when you go on and you know when to stop, and that's a gambling problem. But then also, uh, like people to go on and be in such desperation that they're to just kind of put their whole life savings on the table and put it on red. David goes on and takes all the money. He's like, you know what? I have a good feeling about red. And so he puts it on red. But then he's like, well, maybe black. Then he's like, well, maybe red. Then maybe black. Maybe red. So as the roulette wheel finally goes on to decide these two's fate, we find that it lands on a black 8. And David had put it all, lastly, on red. So Diane is like, oh, she gasps. She grabs the money, and the man is to be behind this table, is to grab it away from them. I'm like, well, sorry. Like, so Diane is be grasping her hand, or grasping David's hand in her mouth, like, oh my God. So, considering they are out of money, there seems to be one guy who seems to be having quite a bit of it, and he is to be at this table trying to go on and find a certain number or a certain pair or certain something. Like this obviously is in Texas Hold'em, so it's got to be something. Maybe it is to be 21. I'm not quite sure. But so since Diane and David have no more money to spend realistically here, they start to make their way through the casino, and David and Diane are to watch as Gage is to be playing around with his money And the day tripper, who is Bob Thornton, is to go on and explain who this guy is, John Gage, and that he's a billionaire, and to look at his chips, and the chips are to go on and be $10,000 chips, and to go on and just have everybody watch on as this billionaire is to possibly lose some money. And everybody is just circling around just to see a billionaire lose a buck. So, as soon as Diane and David are watching this, it seems that John is to start winning here. So, John is to realize that it seems that Diana is a good luck charm, but John really is to want to go on and figure out a way to impress this girl and also try to get her because he knows there's something special about her. So, John, away from his table, is to make his way to David and John, or David and Diane, and states like, well, hey, like, would you mind lending me your wife? Is that your wife? Like, it seems that when she had arrived at this table, I had all of a sudden started winning. So, like, I see her as a good luck charm to me. So, like, would you mind borrowing your wife if I can go on and have her next to me at this table so I can start winning? And David and Diana are like, well, uh, like this seems like a good idea. Like, what's there to lose at this point now? So Diana sits next to John here, and Bob Thornton's character's like, yeah, maybe you can grease some money off of his sweaty hands. That is going to be as if you guys remember the movie As Good as It Gets. There's a one point where the guy is to say that he is to have this rich father, and he is to hope that he can go on and proposition him for money uh, and get money off of his sweaty, greasy hands. And Jack Nicholson is to go on and turn to the guy like, yeah, like maybe you can get more money out of his greasy, sweaty hands. So John sits down with Diana and says like, well, yeah, like, you know, I've been losing all day, but as soon as you appeared, like, I started to win. And so my first hand here with you here, you brought me luck. So he's like, I see it as a sign. So John is to give Diana $100,000, not a million, just 100,000. So he gives her this money, and he tells her, "Hey, bet it all in this one slot, this one time." And she does it, and unfortunately, they end up losing. And so Diane turns to John. It's like, "Well, yeah, I guess I'm not that lucky at all." And John turns to Diane. It's like, "Well, like, do you really like cards?" And she's like, "Well, no." And he's like, "So what do you like? Dice?" And she's like, yeah, I like dice more." So John is like, "All right." So he turns to Amanda. It's like, one. And that ends up meaning 1 million. So John goes to the craps table after signing this check. And now, like, everybody is going on and scrambling to get this guy this huge bit of money. And is to set up this whole crap table to have John and Diane get there. And so John turns to Diane. Man, we're already at an hour already. All right. And so he goes on. It's like, all right, all you need to do is throw that dice and hope for a 7, maybe even 11 or something or whatever. And so Diane has the dice. Like, well, like you need to go on and do like one thing, right? Blow on the dice. So she blows on the dice, lets it roll, and coincidentally, she gets a 7. So it's like, all right, like so John turns to Diane. It's like, well, should I quit it while I'm ahead? And Diane is to turn to John. I'm like, yeah, you should definitely quit while you're ahead. So, but if anything, really, Diane is thinking like, well, maybe I should really quit, because uh, like, what good is any of this to really her, anyways? So Dave is turning to Diane and like, oh my god, you just won this guy $1 million. Like, oh, like you just won this guy just tons of money. And Gage turns to both David and Diane of like, well, hey, like the two of you, David, I'm getting to know you guys now. All right, so like, how about I go on and how about I just like comp everything for you guys? Like, spend the night, don't leave, like just like anything that you guys want, just sign up for it, and like I'll allow it to happen. Like, because you guys are just kind of giving me this huge payout, so I'm gonna go on and kind of just whatever you guys want, just it's yours. So David and Diane make their way to this lavish room where there is this horse statue, and David makes the joke as he grabs this horse statue to put it in the bed, and it's like, "Hey, look, Godfather." So I end up making a joke of it later, but so David is to say to Diane, it's like, well, hey, yeah, like you definitely won this guy this $1 million, and Diane is like, no, 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 like he won it, so the two of them are just kind of thinking it's like, well, hey, like at least we just still have these happy moments, and regardless of how this is all to play out, like we just were happy by the end of all this. So Shackelford, John's assistant, appears with this present, and Shackelford is to state to David and both Diana, it's like, well, hey, we have this party coming up later on. Like, definitely come on, like show up and kind of commingle with all these people. And so David and Diane are just kind of seeing this as like, all right, like this guy just continues to want us in his company, and like we're really just like we're just living the life, living the high life. And how can we not turn down like this lavish party where we're not flipping the bill? So David comes in with this box that is to, of course, be gifted to Diana. And as David's to open it, Diana realizes that it was the dress that she wanted. And Diana is to look at this dress like, it's a $5,000 dress. And David is like, well, how do you know that? And Diana's like, well, I was trying it on uh, earlier before, and I know how much it costs. So David says to Diana, it's like, well, at least he knows that you like black. So they make their way to this party, and so John spots them out at the party, is to kind of reconnect with them, like, hey, hi, hey, yeah, like let's go on and let's share some bottles together, let's have a good laugh together. And like here's where David ends up telling the story about the whole like horse in the bed and how he like spotted it and he put it under the sheets and it's like Godfather, like ah ha ha ha. So the two of them have this fun night, and eventually this is to lead to both John and David at this pool uh, table, which then leads to the questionnaire, which is to go on and finally just be like, oh man, this is what this movie has been building up this whole entire time. This is this one slot, this one position. And also, uh, John and David are to be talking about uh, Shackelford, uh, John's assistant. And John is to tell David, it's like, yeah, that guy killed a guy once. So he's someone I trust. So John goes on and asks the question of like, where do you see yourselves in 10 years? And David turns to John. It's like, well, I'm sure I see myself as being a billionaire like you. And John is like, well, just think about it. Just like beyond money, it's like what would satisfy you? What would make you complete? Like let you sleep well. And David is to turn to John. I'm like, well, do you not think I'm not satisfied? Like, and Diane is like, well, I am. So John obviously it's like, you know, I buy what she's saying there. I completely think that she means it. And it's like regardless of all the money that you're to win in Vegas, like you're still a lucky man. So John is to state that he's like, well, I got money, I got security, I got businesses, uh, but David, you have something that I just don't. And David is like, well, yeah, I guess there is limits to what money can buy, and there's some things that aren't for sale. And Donna's like, well, is that true? Like, is that real for real? And Diana's like, well, yeah, you can't buy people. And David is like, well, that's not true. Like, if anything, like people can actually go on and employ others. They can go on and like they can hand people money and they will take it and put it in the bank. So you technically have bought them, but you are to not go on and ask anything of them at some points. Just to like just hand them this money, knowing that they will go on and put it in the right place. But so John has to realize the whole cliche of you can't buy love is to really just be that a cliche. So he's like, well, you know what? How about we do something with this cliche and let's test it? So John turns to David and Diane and states, like, well, hey, if I gave you $1 million, could I have your wife for one night? And David is like, well, I'm assuming that you're joking here. I'm assuming you're kidding. And John turns to David. It's like, well, pretend I'm not. Just hypothetical. Just like, what would you say? And Diana is like, well, he would say for you to go to hell. And then John's like, well, I didn't hear this coming out of poor mouth over there. Yes, joking. John, John turns to David. It's like, well, I didn't hear what he said. Like, I didn't hear his answer. And David repeats that sentiment. And so he's like, all right, okay, well, like, hey, no harm done. Um, like that is obviously just like the reflex answer, the knee jerk thing to say. But let's just say also that when real money is put behind it, if I were to go on and tell you that like this money is going to be in your bank account by tomorrow morning, and all you need to do is just spend hours with me, then hour me. What if John is to finally state here and press this as hard as he can to say I'm not kidding? Like that money is worth a lifetime of happiness to a guy like you, and all you have to do is let one night pass. So, like, really think of it, really think it through. Like, maybe don't make this decision tonight. And so, but just think of that $1 million, a lifetime of security for one night. So, but if anything, as John is to say, like, well, hey, like, if I'm not going to go on and I'm not going to get a definitive answer out of you, like, could I at least go on and just take your wife with your permission out on the dance floor and just have one dance? And John is like, you know what? Like, no, like this is getting more and more uncomfortable. And John is like, well, you know what? I have like a meeting to kind of go into in the morning. And David turns to John and it's like, well, maybe you should go on. You should get to that meeting. And so John turns to David. It's like, well, yeah, like, you know what? If I was in your hands, like, I wouldn't part with her either. So he leaves. So David and Diane are in their beds, well, in their bed together, and they're tossing and turning. They can't sleep. And what it means by they can't sleep is that you know that they're going to go on and they're going to say yes to this. Because if they had gone on and said no and knew that that was their final answer, they could sleep like babies. But then again, also, you have to think of the fact of like they lost so much money and they need $1 million to get their dream home and their white picket fence life, and just get F money to just blow on dresses and and architecture buildings and what have you. And so, but David and Diane are just turning to one another in this bed, and they're back and forthing one another. She's be like, well, hey, like, can't sleep? Me neither. Like, do you think that we should have gone on and should have done this decision? Do you think we should have gone on and like, did you want me to do it? No. Did you want to do it? No. Ooh, who, yeah, yeah. So, the further and further both of them are to realize how ridiculous this is, but then also go into realizing that at a certain time before they were going on to be married, that they were with other people. And David at some point had dated this slut, but unfortunately, it seemed that it didn't pay out for David, and that also Diane was with somebody before David also. So, and here is the kind of key thing that Diane tells David. It's like, well, it's just my body, it's not my mind. And that, I think, is where Diane is actually pushing that she wants to do this. And And so they both realize that, like, well, if they're losing sleep over this, they want to say yes. But David is to then go on and want to make sure that if they go on to decide to do this, that they want a full proof, sign on the dotted line deal. And so David goes on and calls his lawyer Jeremy while he's having this meeting with these screenwriters. Uh, and they're saying, like, yeah, we have this very special script, and it's kind of like the movie Star is Born. It's kind of very similar, and like these people, it seems, are kind of shopping around for a lawyer, and they're thinking that Jeremy may go on and be that lawyer. And all of a sudden, this whole meeting ends up getting interrupted by Jeremy getting a phone call from David explaining this whole bet. And Jeremy rips off the phone. It's like, I need to just take this conversation. So Jeremy goes on to tell David, it's like, I could have gotten you $2 million. And the screenwriters are going on, I'm like, man, like, we definitely need to go on and we need to hire this guy. Like, this guy is to be like a greedy, money grubbing guy, and like, we definitely need to hire this guy. Like, this guy, like, he's sold. So we then go on to uh further have uh Jeremy making this bit of paper up, and is to have John Gage sign this agreement. And it's a real foolproof plan. And so John is to go on and be looking at this contract, and is to start asking Jeremy questions about, like, okay, like, what is this about? What is that about? And Jeremy is to say, it's like, well, hey, like if you were to die in the act, like, they'll still get paid. Like, if whatever happens, like, they'll still get paid. And John looks at Jeremy and is like, you know what, you should be working for me. And Jeremy's like, well, like, so as the papers are to be signed, the dust is to be settled, John is to then turn to David and Diane of, like, well, we have a deal. $1 million will be deposited in your account in the morning. And we have Shackelford that ends up telling David, it's like, well, hey, it's time for uh, the goodwill of men to take leave of one another, which basically just means, like, let's get bouncing, buddy. Like, if anything, this deal is to go on and to have happened. So it seems that Diane and John to one another to be just kind of so, like, awkward and uncomfortable between one another once these papers are put to pen and what have you. And like, John turns to Diane to, like, I won't bite. So Diane turns to John here. It's like, well, should I just undress? But no. When John wants to go on and do this, he wants to be good and ready. He wants to go on and, like, he wants, like, the perfect atmosphere. He wants the perfect circumstances, and, like, he wants to wine and dine this woman. So John and Jeremy are off at this fountain And I think David here doesn't want to think about it at all, but John is just going on and on and on about it, about how like hey man, it's gonna be okay. Like if anything, like if this guy had offered me $1 million, I'd sleep with him, and so and I also could have gotten you $2 million, and like Jeremy just keeps going on and on about this, about like I could have gotten you $2 million, like uh, so and so like Jeremy is just telling David here, just think of the money, just think of the $1 million, just think of the money, just don't think about what he's doing with your wife, just banging your wife, just doing whatever he wants with her, just think about that $1 million, just come on. So uh and Jeremy's like, I probably wouldn't have even gotten $500 from my girlfriend. Like, so, uh, the more and more that Jeremy is drilling this into David's head, David believes that he is to possibly have made a mistake. That he is to go on and try to make his way back to John's place, to run up this elevator, to make his way back to where John had been, to then ask this maid where they are, to then realize that they're at this helicopter being flown off. And by the time that David tries to chase them down, it of course be too late. They're already off on this helicopter and they're gone. So David is to go on to make his way through this casino and see these horse races. But then all he's to go on and actually see is his wife probably getting some laying in by John, or so, he's seeing some kind of visual that I'm not quite sure exactly what we're seeing. But I guess we just have to assume that everywhere John goes, all he sees is what his wife may go on and be doing with this other man. And this is kind of like double impact in a way, where Jean Claude's character is to be twins, and at one point, the one brother is to obtain the other brother's girlfriend and rescue her and have her on this boat. And the entire time, we have the other twin who doesn't have his woman with him, just kind of speculate what what the other two are doing on this boat, and like having him fantasize that they're probably going on and they're sleeping together. And by the time that this guy arrives uh, with his brother's wife, he goes on and starts beating the crap out of him, just because he is to kind of contemplate. It's like, well, did you sleep with him? Did you like did you do anything? And that ends up having the two of them just start to fight. And like there's the line where uh Jason Jean goes into where he's like, brother, it's like, you say that because he looks like me? Well, all right, like I'm going to F up his face. And like he'll never look like me again. And like and then they start fighting, and it's pretty awesome. But so uh but the whole brother, you say that because he looks like me? Or I'm going to F up his face. Anyways, so Diane is to be on this helicopter, and this helicopter goes from this helicopter to then this yacht. Very lavish, right? This helicopter lands on this yacht. I'm like, how is that possible? Like, good grief. Like, that seems kind of really just scary to have a helicopter need to perfectly land on some yacht. Uh, but I get, hey, uh, like it happened in the movie. So Diane makes her way into what is supposed to be her room and notices this dress there, and it's to just kind of be very like foreign and looks very Japanese or Chinese origin. It looks like just for how it's kind of the dress that kind of goes like a wraparound kind of thing. And I don't want to offend anybody to be like, oh, maybe this is just some dress that was just done in wherever they were and what have you. But it looks like that kind of style. No offense. So Diane is to go on and take off this dress that she is to go on and have with her, and she is to take a bath. She's to put on this makeup, and and furthermore is to go through this yacht uh, because of course John is now ready for her. So John and Diane are to meet up, and Diane is to tell John, it's like, well, yeah, they sent for me, and they said you were ready, and so John ends up having Diane get close to him, and he notices that he's so close to her. It's like, oh, missed a button. Let me get that for you. So all of a sudden, all of the lights go out on this yacht, and Diane is like, well, like, why did the power all go off? And John is like, well, there's obvious reasons. Just look up in the sky. And Diane is to be looking at all the stars and like, well, hey, can you turn all those off too? And John is like, well, I'm working on it. So John just wants just kind of a bit of kind of closure and be like, all right, well, like who really definitively like made the decision for you to come here? And Diana's like, well, we both did. It's like, no, uh, like do it for your own reasons or don't do it at all. Like, and so the further and further they talk here, John is to go on and say like, well, maybe we can go on and just by luck really just like see where this night heads us. And John is to take out his supposedly lucky coin and flip to be like, hey, heads we go through with it, or tails like we call the whole night off. So John flips this coin and ends up being heads. But later on, we come to find as John hands Diane this coin, we later on find out that this was a trick coin. That this is to be a coin that has heads on either side. So he was going to win regardless. He was going to get what he wants. So John goes on and is to say here, it's like, well, hey, nothing happens if you don't choose it, if you don't want it to happen. And so John is to tell Diane to trust him as they kiss. So David is to go on and probably the whole entire night, probably not get a lick of sleep. And David is to just be like hitting this button to have the curtains open and close consistently, and just be almost in tears by the fact that he was to run after her, and he just let her slip from his hands. So Diane is to make her way back into the room, and as David is to look at Diane, he's going to smear the lipstick from her face and then kiss her, and then the two of them say that they love one another. So here is where we go on to state, like, I told myself it was over, uh, like a dream that vanished in the morning light, and in time, enough time, I would forget. So after they are to go on and obtain this $1 million, you would think that, like, oh man, they have like everything they wanted to do could happen, and that they were definitely going to go on and get their dream house back and their dream patch of land back and live their white picket fencedy life, and all would be done with, right? Come to find out, yeah, no. So as both David and both Diane make their way to this guy to figure out if they can go on and get their house back and the batch of land back, the guy's like, "Yeah, come to find out, you're a little bit too late. You're just days too late. We had gone on and taken this batch of land and we sold it to somebody because, well, like, you guys didn't make the payments, so we just went on and just took it from you." So they're to go on and be like, well, who could it be? Like, maybe we can buy it back from them. And it's like, well, we can't disclose that information. So the guy has to turn to David and be like, well, you snooze, you lose. And David's like, you snooze, you lose. Like, all right, like that's just perfect. That's just beautiful. So David and Diana are to be, of course, just livid at this point. So they thrust out of this building and are to go on and tell anybody that is to be kind of be waiting for this guy, like, hey, like, he'll F you like he did us. So, like, don't go on and don't go with this guy. So here is where the rabbit hole starts to go between these two characters. So David makes his way back with Diane to their place, and like David is going on and putting water in the kettle, and then all of a sudden he notices matches that has the word Griffin on it, or something along those lines, and so he thinks nothing of it, but he's like, where are these matches from? Why is it that we still have these matches? And so there goes the rabbit hole of, like, Diane getting uh, her thing of water and her thing to just water the plants, and she turns to then David, just be like, well, hey, like, you want to help me with gardening? And Diane goes out there and starts to just kind of do this gardening, and then David is just kind of sitting off to the side, nowhere near this gardening. And like at some point, like, really just David goes out there to finally go on and be like, well, you know what, oh, it's Griffon. That's to be the thing on the matches. So David ends up turning to Diana, and it's like, you know what, like, I didn't want to know anything about that night, but the further and further I'm thinking about it, like, I think I want to know. Like, I think I want to know exactly what happened. Let me just. Good God, I'm getting tangled up here. Um, Seriously? All right. Good God. Um, so much wires here. Uh, so at first the question is like, okay, the box of matches, like where is this from? And so the rabbit hole starts with Diane like, well, hey, like you didn't look through my purse, did you? And David is like, well, why would I want to do that? Um, and there goes into having this go even further, um, as to also like David had found out from Diana that the matches were from a boat, and David's like, oh my god, he brought you to a boat, and yeah, so David is to go on and be bouncing this ball right next to this bag. And David, for a good long time, doesn't want to go on and open the bag, but he's so tempted. So he, of course, goes on, opens up the bag, gets to the wallet, and he realizes that there's a picture of both her and him in the wallet. But then again, also, he notices that there's a card left there that has John's name and John's phone number. So David goes back to Diana and flies off the handle at that. Like, well, hey, you kept his phone number? Like, who did you call? And Diane's like, well, I called my mother. Like, so David is to go on to be like, oh, no, you didn't call your mother. And Diane's like, yeah, I called my mother and she wasn't there. So cat and mouse goes on here. And so David is like, well, hey, like, uh, there's this card that has like this guy's name on it and phone number. Like, why did you keep this? And Diane's like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't even know that was even there. So the further and further it drives a wedge between the two of these people, just on this whole card thing, that maybe John planted this whole thing on her to put in her wallet without her knowing, because who knows, maybe during that night, as Diane was fast asleep, maybe John rifled through her stuff and was to put this card in there. We don't know. But so but it gets to the point where Davis to all of a sudden realize that he doesn't trust Diane just because of this whole card showing up and the whole match thing being left there. So Diane is to just finally want to go on and just want to know who was to have bought the property. So come to find out, she's to go through this bit of computer with her friend that can give her this bit of information, because Diane wants to hope that they can buy the house back with their $1 million. And come to find out, the person who had bought the land was actually John Gage. So it's like, aha! So John Gage is wanting to go on and just F with these people's lives. And I'm sure John Gage probably has a private investigator to find out about these people. And like, it's not all just convenience. Like John probably had like for this one whole night to just be like, hey, send this private investigator out, see what's going on with these people, so I can just F with their lives more. So Diane finds miraculously where John Gage is, because it seems that she bizarrely knows, and is to find this also just maybe where he worked, and maybe she just backpedaled and backtracked and what have you. But Diane goes uh to this place where Gage is having this discussion with a number of guys, and she grabs the tablecloth and flings it, and of course Diane is upset. She's uh like, why'd you steal that property from us? And excuse me. And so John is to realize that things are getting very heated here, and John is kind of telling everybody like, hey, like, he advised me of this property, like, it's okay, it's all right. And Diane's like, no, bullshit, like, you stole this from out from under us, and I want it back. And so the more and more that people are to start to go on and are the waiters are getting involved, like, hey, like, should we have this person just kind of get out of here? John is like, no, 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 like, it's fine, like I'll take her and I'll talk to her, like, don't have any police being called, no, 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 none of that. So John takes Diane and has a conversation with her, and so Diane is to say, it's like, well, hey, like, give me that land back, give it to me. And John is like, well, you can't afford it. And Diane is like, well, how about $1 million? And John is like, no, if you had $2 million, maybe think about it. But even then, like the price would probably be $4 million. So John is like, I saw an opportunity, I took it, and boo hoo for you. And like, you had the money, you had the instincts, but you were just far too late to just collect on this. So here's where John turns to Diane. It's like, well, I want you to work with me. Like, I want you to uh, I want you to go on and just like, I want you to help me out. And Diana is like, no, like, hell no, like I hate you. And here's like the amazing, like, like, John is just like, no, you don't hate me. Like, you wish you hate me. You wish you hated me. So Diane makes her way back to David, and she goes on to say, it's like, well, like, I made my way back to John, like, and so David's like, well, did you him? Did you sleep with him? And Diane's like, no, like, it's not about that. And so she tries to go on and tries to explain, like, what had happened. And again, like, David is just like, well, you wanted to sleep with him. So but she met him in obviously a very public place, and she found out that John had bought their property. And so, and also Diane is to tell David, it's like, well, you have no reason to be jealous at this point, because, like, I hate this guy. And so David is to finally go on of like, well, like, you know what, I really need to want to know, like, what happened on that boat. Like, what did you do? And like, Diane is like, what does it matter now? Like, if I told you any number of things at this point, you wouldn't believe me. And like, even if I told you that this man was an effing stallion, that, like, that you just wouldn't believe me. So finally, Diane breaks it down to David that that it was sex, and it was just that. It was not love. And David should go on and ask Diane, it's like, well, was it good? Like, tell me it was good. Like, just tell me the truth. And Diane is hesitating, and David is like, well, why are you hesitating? Like, just yes or no. Like a simple, was it good? Like, was it good? Did it make you explode? Did it do it for you? Or did it feel like you falling down a flight of stairs? Was it just awkward and like, come on, like, give me the truth, give it to me straight, uh, put some steak on it, and so so Diane does, I believe, admit that yes, it was good, and so eventually Diane states that she had gone on and done this all for David. It was all for him, and David has stated back to Diane, it's like, well, you know what, you were attracted to him, and and so he's thrusting himself against this door because of how like he knew David knew that like that this girl was so easy to probably want to go on and say yes to all this because she actually did uh like have some kind of connection or chemistry with this guy, and of course he was to be of course attractive because not only his money but then also just his looks. Just like if he was to be just this fugly fat man, like realistically Diane wouldn't have not have thought of twice, but this guy is actually really attractive looking. He's the best looking guy. So David leaves and goes to Jeremy's place, and so Diane and Jeremy separate for a bit. And so Jeremy calls and Diane is on the phone, and Diane says that she doesn't want the money, but David doesn't want it either. So Jeremy's like, well, hey, I'll take the money if neither one of you want it. So realizing that the two of their relationship is to now be over at this point, and so now we just have some time passing, and Diane is at her um, her real estate job, and there seems to be a guy that's coming in to want to look at $10 million homes, and Mr. Langford is going on and telling Diane, it's like, well, hey, you need to go out there and you need to work with this guy because he's going to go on and give us a big, huge, massive payday. So you better go out there and work with him. Diane kind of pokes her head and realizes that she's having to work with Gage. So she's like, no, I'm not going to work with this guy. And Langford tells Diane, it's like, well, you know what? Like, if you don't work with this guy, you're fired. Like, if there was ever a time I was to go on and tell you to do something, it's now. And because there was no one else that this guy could go on and ask to do this but her. So it's like, well, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do it now. You're gonna do it good. You're gonna. It's like the lemonade thing with The Walking Dead, where Negan turns to the one woman and is like, "You're gonna make this lemonade. And you're gonna make it good." So, or I'm gonna fire you. So Diane goes on to be like, oh, okay, well, like I guess I'm uh like I guess I'm just stuck working with this guy. So Diane tells John, um it's like, well, hey, if you think this is gonna work, like you've well underestimated me. So John and Diane are to go through this car, and eventually this is all to lead to Diane asking John, it's like, well, hey, like since we have to go and we have to do this anyways, like what house do you want to go in and see? Like what kind of style or what do you want? And John ends up telling Diane like he wants Paris. So Diane shows John throughout this entire house, and it has a very Paris like feel to it. And Diane turns to John and goes, "Hey, do you like the house?" He's like, "No." She's like, "All right." So further and further they go through all these houses until it seems that they are to go on and find nothing that John probably really wants. So instead, they start driving through and finding a $30 million house. And John turns to Diana. It's like, well, look at that house. Like, do you think I can't go on and buy that kind of house? And Diana's like, well, like you can't buy that house because it's not for sale. And John is like, oh, is it? So the two of them start to make their way into that house, and then we realize that this is actually John's house. And so John is to go on and ask Diana, it's like, what do you think this house needs? And she's like, well, obviously this house needs some dogs, this needs some life in it. And John is to turn to Diane, it's like, well, it needs you. And this is, of course, where John goes on and tells Diane uh, this story. But before that, like, John wants this woman, and Diane is turning to John. It's like, you know what, you just collect things. But John ends up going on and telling this story about how he is to have gone to the movies and eventually gone on this train or the subway, sees this woman there to kind of play coy and whatever, but then he gets off the subway and loses her forever. And he's like, I'm not doing that again. So, like, John wants to go on and press as hard as he can to win over Diana here. So David is to now go on and put his life back together, and he is to seemingly find this place that is to seemingly be his. He is to kind of put these clothes on this hanger. He has this dog, and he ends up putting these shoes on this table. And then he realizes, well, you know what? Maybe I won't put these shoes on on this table anymore. Maybe I'll finally put it on the ground, but I'll still go on and I'll take my clothes and chuck them all over the place because this is just my life now, and I like this the way I like it. So we find Diane is to have this side job where she is to teach citizenship for obviously these people who are trying to go on and become U.S. citizens. So Diana goes on and is to start asking where some of these people had come from. And one person states that they're from South Korea or Seoul, Korea, my bad. And then some people are to kind of poke their eyes out of this window to also notice that there's a limousine and a guy coming out of it. Like, ooh, all right, okay, um, like look at this guy out there. So Diana, who is to notice Miguel kind of poke his head from this uh, from the rest of everyone, Diana ends up asking this guy what his name is and where he's from, and so Miguel ends up asking Cuba or answering Cuba. So here's where John finally pokes his head out and is to simply want to uh, be a part of this class. He's like, hey, can I watch? And Diana is to say, it's like, well, this class is full. And John was like, I don't know, maybe I can just go on and just kind of just figure out a way into this class and just sit in and because there is one seat that is open. So Diane starts going on within this class and is to go on and be very distracted by John. And so, as much as John is to go on and start muttering something in Spanish, because we have to assume that he probably had learned the language because of how rich he is, That ends up kind of stopping this class dead in its tracks, and so Diane is to ask John, like, well, hey, what exactly did you say? And it's like, well, I just said that you're an amazing woman and you're beautiful and you're talented and that I'm crazy about her and this and that. So the more and more this kind of builds, the more Diane is to get ever so close to John, realizing that Diane is going to get completely derailed here by just John, who is just non-stoppingly just like not wanting to do anything but be with this woman, and is going to just force her into giving in to him. So as the two of them walk away from this class, John is to go on and kind of wipe some chalk off of Diane's face, and John wants to show Diana something. He wants to show her something. So as soon as he opens the door, she notices two dogs, and he's like, "Well, I'm not sure what kind of dog you like. I got the big one and the small one." Uh, so again, John is like, "Well, hey, like anything else?" Like I didn't have much time to go on and really do anything more than that. But like, is there anything else that I'm missing here? And so finally, John goes on and asks like Diane to dance, and oh, I guess this is probably where he goes into the story. My bad. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. I've said this story already twice now, probably. Anyways, so the two of them go on and they dance, and John takes Diane home, and the two of them kiss. So trying to wrap this up as quickly as I can, knowing all well that this is probably getting to very close to the time of the movie of being over. So David is going on and having this dog with him, and again, he's chucking these clothes all over the place, and just kind of reminded about the good old days between him and Diane, and being reminded of the time that they were at this zoo and they were watching this hippo and just having a good old time. And David is looking at all the old pictures of Diana and 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 looking at them and reading them, and then he starts to tear them all up. And regardless of how he's to kind of look at the past and look at their wedding and look at when he proposed to her and the first kiss, he tears the photos up and is realized that maybe he is to never go on and get this girl ever again. But then we see later that he tapes up the photos. So Diane and John are making their way to this place, and David is to be in the way. David is to go on and be just so upset at this point that he talks to John like, "Hey, can I have a word with you? Like, me and Diane have a secret here, and like, I just want to go on and I just want to, John, I want to talk to you." So David says that instead of John having the bird that he has, then maybe instead John should actually have a cuckoo. Very weird here. And come to find out that this cuckoo bird is to go on and just kind of wreck people's lives or wreck animals' lives, kind of like how David is to realize how John is to kind of wreck his. So this is all to lead to have David kind of almost swing at John, but he falls over instead. And Diane is to tell John and Shackleford, hey, like just kind of take care of him. And so John lets Shackleford go on and take David back to his place and chuck him on this couch or this bed or whatever. And Shackleford goes on to look at all these pictures that are all to be kind of fixed together, and he smiles and then he walks away. David's to be woken up by this dog, and he is to look at this house model, And this leads him to go on and find this job that is to be way over his experience level. Uh, and there's no way that this guy is probably going to go on and hire him. But David goes on and tells this guy, it's like, well, hey, just exploit me. Just hire me so I can get paid. I don't care. So David starts to go through these slideshows and eventually is to see a picture of Diana. So David is to go on and be this teacher of this class. And eventually, while showing all of these pictures of all these places, and eventually, the key thing here is for him to show this brick. To say it's like, well, hey, a brick always wants to go on and always wants to be something. And it's more than just uh, a brick or maybe even a weapon to some people. So eventually, everybody, it seems to be very inspired by the speech that David is to go on and give. And Jeremy is to be in the audience and is just be like, man, has this guy changed? So Jeremy turns to David, and like David is to turn to Jeremy, like, well, hey, what are you doing here? And Jeremy is like, well, hey, I missed you. It's like, all right, okay. So, but Jeremy tells David why he's really here is really because Diana wants a divorce. So, of course, Jeremy is to tell David, it's like, well, hey, you can keep everything, uh, and like the land, the money, everything, you can keep all of it. And David is just be sad, but he assumes that maybe this relationship really is over. So, both John and Diana are to be at this lavish event that is to seem to be some kind of fundraiser for these animals, and we have this Bill Connolly that ends up going in front of this microphone and is to go on and try to kind of tell some jokes. And then is to go on and like, all right, we have all these animals here. You were to go on and see them and touch them and whatever. Now let's go on and let's start this auction off, and let's try to see who's to go on and pay for these animals. So, and the bidding is to start at 10,000. So Diana, of course, is to be a lover of hippos, and so she's going on whispering sweet nothings to John, like, "Hey, you better get that hippo because I love hippos." And John's like, "All right, okay, I will whisper more sweet nothings to you back because I can, because I will." And so at first, so John is to throw in or $30,000, and there seems to be somebody in the back that is like 40,000, 45,000, 50,000, back and forth, back and forth. So all of a sudden, way in the back, there's the $1 million coming from somewhere. You find out that it's David. And so I guess that is one way to get rid of this $1 million that he just never really wanted nothing of. And so as the guy who's kind of putting this whole thing together is kind of turning and like, oh, okay, well, I guess no one else is going to go on and pay $1 million for this hippo. Well, sir, you've gotten this hippo. So David doesn't want to go on and for one last time talk to Diane. And Diane is to tell David, it's like, well, I really wanted you to have that money. And David turns to Diane and it's like, well, I really wanted you to have that hippo. So Diane tells David, it's like, well, hey, can we just have a moment alone? So John ends up kind of leaving here. So David explains that he's teaching now, and he's finally getting to talk about architecture because done that so much with Diane, and because he just loves it. And all of a sudden, the place of which they're doing these biddings on is starting to rain and starting to horribly pour. And John is to get even more of a distance away from Diane and David, because he's just wanting to just kind of not get rained on. So David has to realize that there was a mistake that he had made in Vegas, and the mistake was that he realized that there was no way that they could forget what they did. And David was to turn to Diane. It's like, and he said this before, but he's going to say it now again, that he thought the two of them were invincible. That that uh, he also realizes that if they stayed together, it's not because they forgot, it's because they forgive. So David realized that he thought that Diane really did want uh, John here because he was possibly the better man. But if anything, really what it was is that just John had more money than David, and that's all that probably Diane really saw in John, was just that he had money. So David goes on and he signs the divorce papers and leaves. And I think this is almost, yeah, this is, we're finally at the end here. We're finally at the end game now. So John looks at David and Diane. It's like, nope, I've lost here. Like, I've gone on and like, there's no turning back now. Like, she's gonna go back to him. I just feel it. So John and Diane are in the car together, and John figures out a way to get rid of Diana because he knows he's lost her anyways. So John goes on and is to talk uh to Shackleford here, and is to let it slide. John is to say it's like, well, hey, like Diane, man, she was really the best of some of them. Shackleford is, well, what do you mean, John? It's like, well, John, um, or Shackleford, how about you go on and finally explain it to her? So the way they kind of break it down, John says that there has been more than just Diane that they've done this to. That if anything, they've probably had like half a dozen girls that they've done this to, and Diane will probably not be the last. And so when hearing that, Diane is to be like, oh, like, so like he's done this before. I'm not the only one. So like I mean nothing to him. And so eventually this is all to lead to Diane getting out of the car and going on this bus and making her way back to David. And Shackleford turns to John and is like, well, why did you tell her that? And John is like, well, I wanted it to end. Like, she never would have looked at me the way she looked at him, so I knew this is over right then. So, but John ends up handing, before Diana leaves, his lucky coin. And as Diane is on this bus, she turns the coin, realizes that it's two sides of the same coin, that they're both heads, and that he would have won regardless. So Diane tries to find where David is and finds him on this pier. And the two of them have this moment together where they're at this pier. And Diane ends up stating to David, it's like, well, have I told you that I loved you? And David's like, no, and so Diane is like, well, I do. And he's like, still, always. And then the two of them, they grab their hands from behind one another, and the movie ends. So with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Also, I'm not quite sure if I've been saying this woman's name right, if it's Diane or not, but F it. I'm just going to get out of here, and if anything, if I mess that up, then I mess that up. I think I said her name right because I always was starting to get confused. Diana. Yeah, I was right. So, like, I was happy with that because, like, did I up this girl's name at some point? And I just kept running with it. Uh, but anyways, I'm going to get the flock out of here so that we can put this video out and hope that it gets some kind of view count somehow. But without a doubt, let me know in the comments below how you felt about this movie. If you watched this whole video for whatever goofy reason that you decided to do so, because you had nothing better to do, you had 2 hours to kill, and if you've watched this whole entire thing, you just enjoy the story, like, comment, subscribe if you're brand new to all this. But then again, also, you probably should have been doing that all along before you watch this entire video. But that's all if you want to go on to do any of number of those things. But again, that's on you if you want to go on and do that. Your view is just good enough. Because at the end of the day, I hope that I'm going to go on and just continue to get views. Because it seems that I'm just going into these just certain movies and shows that no one really gives a about, but I do. And I'm going on and just having fun with them and just being entertained by these certain movies and shows. And with that said, I really could not care about anything else beyond that. That at least I'm just kind of doing things that I'm kind of at least happy with, and at least this kind of movie is to go on and just be like, yeah, I probably didn't want to go on and at first really want to do this kind of film, but at least this kind of movie, like, it didn't really seem that it was going to go on and just be like a skin fest and whatever. So, like, I can enjoy a movie like this, even though I'm like, well, I'm probably just clickbaited into this movie anyways. But I really did find ways to enjoy it, and so that's kind of the coming up with this, where there are other times where I've gone on and done other certain reviews where I'm like, I really didn't want to do this at all. And like, I knew that it was popular, or I knew it was this, or I knew it was that. And it was just kind of like the robotic function of like, yeah, it probably did seem like I was happy, or it did seem like I was enjoying the movie or whatever. But like secretly, I was just kind of like, well, like I knew I had to just go on and just kind of put this out, and figure out ways to be happy with it. And like, that is just the horrible decision that I have to go on and make, and find ways to just be just happy in the moment of a movie that I'm to just be like, well, I guess I have to do this again. But at least this movie didn't exactly feel that way. So I was kind of happy about how this movie all came out to be. Where I was like I can like this about this movie. I could like this about this movie. All right. So that's it. I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. Let me know in the comments below whatever you effing want to, because you have the choice. You have the choice of a new generation. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.